The United States is undergoing perhaps the largest asset stripping operation in history, both with the merger of the US and Israeli military and intelligence operations, which I talked about in the previous video, and the controlled demolition of the economy, which I'll go into a little bit in this one. There's also asset stripping along the spiritual and psychological dimensions. This involves dismantling a people's history, dismantling their religious identities, and substituting Big Parasite and shitified, easily controlled version instead, and the creation of a slave species with a hive mind that is just, you press a couple buttons and everybody just does what you tell them to do. Democracy, as I explained in the previous video, was the backdoor by which this system could be easily invited into the country under the guise of tolerance. Basically, we let the wolves into the henhouse, and now, I mean, the foxes into the henhouse. I'm mixing my metaphors. We let the wolves into the henhouse while they were garbed in sheep's clothing, and they've been going hog wild ever since. Now, the culmination of all of this in humiliation rituals and other means of debasing the United States, both internationally and domestically and along every axis you can possibly think of, is culminating in this Freedom 250 celebration because, 250 years is enough. We don't need to be independent anymore. We can just be Israel's bitch all day, and that's what we're gonna be. And I can just, be a loose plantation to be farmed as needed by Big Parasite for its energetic needs, and of course for its natural resource needs, for its physical needs, for its sex slave needs, for every single thing you can possibly imagine that has any value to anyone. Yeah, they have a plan to take it. So this is, again, I've said this before, stealing everything that's not nailed down, then stealing the nails, then stealing all of the air in the room, and so on and so on, basically leaving nothing but a black hole behind. I detailed every aspect of the asset stripping operation would be here all night. But we're going to look at the whole thing through the lens of this Freedom 250 celebration, which is basically, you know how they like to kind of tell you what they're doing before they do it, because by you not doing anything about knowing what they're going to do, it's like implied consent. So they're just putting it all out there. I've never seen anything like this. This is so blatant. This is so in your face. Like, you have to laugh because otherwise you would just like your head would explode. But it's unbelievable. I mean, they really don't give a fuck. And yeah, I mean, I catch myself like laughing about it, but it's really sinister what they've got planned for us because like once this is complete, if they're successful, there's no coming back from this. And while there are other well I've already written and made videos about their planned like epistemological Samson option idea of Grand Theft reality. This is something different because this is just like specifically targeting the United States. It's a microcosm of everything, well, everything that is considered bad about America, everything that they've encouraged in us as a way to weaken our culture and weaken our social bonds and everything. Everything that they have planned for us, all of the dystopian shit and the psyops they're going to use to get there. They really like laying it all out there in a way that is seldom so out in the open. If you want to understand the stripping operation that's dismantling the United States, not only in the physical sense and the financial sense, but also in the spiritual sense and social sense and the psychological sense, one need only look at the Freedom 250 celebration, which is basically a microcosm of the entire human sacrifice that they went to perform. Hopefully, not literally, but as I said in the first video, yeah, we can't really put anything past these people, and indeed, we've already seen what may or may not have been an effort to take things kinetic. Certainly a psychological human sacrifice, the enshittification and debasement and humiliation of the American identity. It will be sacrificed by Big Parasite in order to reap the rewards. It's designed to break our spirit, and so the more we can be on guard against that, the more we can withdraw our consent from these systems, the more likely we are to survive as a people, as a species, and as individuals. Because they would like to kill a lot of us, I think. I mean, that part is obvious. So, without further ado.
Ain't no way it's that empty. This is on the National Mall. We spend $80 million of taxpayer money. All right, everybody, you gotta check this out. Just like everything else.
Okay, look, I just want to pause and say we didn't spend $80 million of taxpayer money on that fair. We spent $80 million of taxpayer money, but our cronies pocketed at least half of it. We maybe spent $20 million in the fair, And we hired our buddies as contractors, so they subcontracted it out, and the contractors pocketed the rest. So we probably spent like $5 on it. Anyway,
else Donald Trump touches. This great American fair is falling apart at the seams. We are on day 3 of his 16-day fair that is funded by our taxpayer dollars to the tune of 80 million, and it's falling apart. The exhibits are entirely empty. The fields have nobody in them. Even the main attraction, the Ferris wheel, ran out of power last night and was shut down all evening. We have melting ice cream. We have not enough tables, so kids are being forced to eat on the ground. And on top of all of that, even some exhibits have a Confederate flag.
he takes offense at the Confederate flag, but not at the Israeli flag, which was, can we say go-go gadget humiliation ritual? This is ridiculous. Fortunately, nobody's there, and indeed, this is what we saw across the entire state fair so far. I guess it started a couple days ago. I knew I was going to see an Israeli flag. This guy cares about the Confederate flag. Who gives a fuck about the Confederate flag? At least that was like American in some sense.
Not only the empty crowds, not only the politics behind it, but even some wild stories that have been going incredibly viral. Like, what about this? MAGA fan accused of masturbating at Donald Trump's Great American State Fair in latest setback for embattled event. I don't even know how I could read that with a straight.
I'm sorry, this is designed to just like put the nail in our coffin of our national dignity. Then this is a Trump guy who's going to come in and jerk off at the national fair. Like, that doesn't make any sense if you're looking at it from any other vantage point other than like this is a humiliation ritual, and that ultimately the aim is the sacrifice of the American national soul. By the way, that guy, I don't know, something about that nose. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say? And it would be a very Sabbatine Frankish thing to get caught masturbating in public to a acrobatics display celebrating the opening of this 250th anniversary celebration. I mean, actually, it would be hard to find something more Sabbatine Frankish, unless maybe he was like molesting a child, but maybe he couldn't find any kids to molest. Apparently, there was nobody there. Obviously, featuring stories like that is meant to just feed the humiliation ritual because this whole World's Fair or State Fair thing is definitely a humiliation ritual. Like 10 states didn't even show up because they had limited funds. They didn't want to spend their taxpayer dollars on one of Trump's vanity projects, and the whole thing was built so trod so hastily. But in the run up to this State Fair thing, like all the musicians pulled out except Vanilla Ice. So why do you think had Vanilla Ice there? That was to rub it in your face that you suck and you only deserve Vanilla Ice. I mean, come on. Everybody pulled out because they didn't want to be part of Trump's like vanity project, which is understandable, and we should have like done that. But it's just like they think that we deserve Vanilla Ice, and it's up to us to stand up for ourselves and say, no, I deserve better than Vanilla Ice. And he was even again rubbing it in people's faces. Most replacing artists plotted Freedom 250 with himself. He wrote that he was considered stepping in personally and describing himself as somebody who gets much larger audiences than Elvis in his prime and does so without a guitar. Okay, so you're overweight, past your prime, addicted to drugs, and probably gonna die in the toilet? Yes, you're very much like Elvis. Now, that dying part, can we like hurry it up a little bit? And I don't mean like fake assassination attempts. I mean like you fucking have a coronary crapping yourself. That would be awesome. But it would definitely be the culmination of like the humiliation ritual. He would have to crap himself on camera or something to really satisfy the whole energy that's been building up. Because it really is about rubbing our faces in how we are no longer powerful, we are no longer relevant, we are no longer even able to draw a crowd to a free event. It's like putting a mirror up to the worst parts of America and saying, this is everything about your country. And obviously people aren't into that, but we're not being given a choice. Launching the 16-day event on Wednesday, Trump told supporters, America is back. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world, he said. We're respected by everybody. Nobody's laughing at us anymore. Cue hysterical laughter from all corners of the internet. You have to wonder if it's like meant to instill some sort of like national psychosis, like Carrie at the prom, where her mother has been telling her, "Don't go to the prom; they're all gonna laugh at you." And then she gets there and she gets pig's blood poured on her, and everybody's laughing, except that in our case, the pig's blood is kosher.
I want to walk you through the entire series of events from beginning to finish because it's been a disaster this entire time. And let's just start with day 1. On day 1, Donald Trump held an opening rally that I covered. And throughout this opening rally, people began to rapidly walk out. Larger than Russia, Saudi Arabia by far combined. This dude is just sitting there yapping like the entire fair is supposed to be a Trump rally, and it
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of is, as he points into it.
basically is. The entire fair is, underfunded. It's kind of trashy. There's awful music. There's fourth-rate musicians. There's melting ice cream. People are paying $20 for cheeseburgers, $23 for turkey legs, $9 for lemonade, and $12 if you wanted stuffed pretzels. In this type of economy, I don't understand why they're upcharging people so much, but I do, because they spent $80 million of tax.
No, that's not why. That's because ritual humiliation is why. I mean, I'm glad that these people walked away, but they really shouldn't have gone in the first place. Let's just put it that way. I realize hope springs eternal and people want to actually celebrate their country. And that's the idea that they're depriving us of the chance to celebrate the country's 250th anniversary in a like meaningful or sane or like enjoyable way is part of the experience. They don't want to have any like because asset stripping has to be conducted on multiple levels, as I said, not just asset like concrete assets, not like financial assets, but psychological assets, spiritual assets, like things like patriotism, national feeling. They need to make sure there's not even a drop left in the pot. So that's where this comes in. This is just like all the worst aspects of what America currently is are being presented as the sum total of what America is. So whether that's overpriced, shitty food, or like Trump bloviating about what he claims to have accomplished but hasn't. And he made sure to make himself the centerpiece of this whole thing. And he keeps talking about this. 2 years ago, the United States was dead. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. What the fuck does that even mean? Why is the hottest state in quotes? It's like ignominious.
L'enfer, c'est les autres.
Great patriots. What if this is successful? There will be no more patriots. Patriotism for the former United States will be considered anti-Semitic, much as expressing religious convictions outside of Judeo-Christianity is considered anti-Semitic now.
Right here, you can see the main field is empty. There is a sparse crowd up front as Donald Trump is taking the stage. It is just an abject failure in every sense of the term.
Again, if you look at it in the sense of, well, this is supposed to attract a lot of people and be really fun and be enjoyable for everybody, well, then yes, it would be considered an abject failure. I would argue that it is meant as a giant humiliation ritual in order to complete the cycle of humiliation rituals and total demoralization that has brought us to this point of sacrificing the United States after 250 years of pseudo-independence. Now we can just remove the veil and forget about this idea of independence because it was never really there in the first place. Now, was it? Well, was it? That can be debated because certainly the founding documents of this country, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, are laudable and are actually a good basis on which to build a country. But of course, it was enshittified from the very beginning by certain agents of Big Parasite, about whom more in a minute. But yeah, so if we had actually followed our own rules, we wouldn't be here today. But unfortunately, people got this democratic mind virus in their brains, and that left the door wide open for Big Parasite to stroll in after people's guard was down after the revolution, successfully yanked one parasite out of our blood funnel out of our necks. Another convinced us to invite it right in. Because that's always their whole thing is getting the person it's like a vampire. I mean, the vampire has to be invited in, and so does Big Parasite. Unfortunately, we got a whole lot of Stockholm syndrome having motherfuckers who are just willingly inviting that parasite in because it's a solution to a problem that they also created. And I want to stress, I mean, I said this in the previous video, but my beef is not with America, the idea as expressed in the Constitution and the Direct Declaration of Independence. I think that those are both great documents, and I think that this country would be great if it was actually like based on those, but it's not, and we know this, and the less that one has to like make that mental leap every single time, the easier it is going to be to actually solve the problem. But for some reason, people insist on treating these things as if they are what they're meant at face value. This is not supposed to be a way for Americans to gather together and celebrate the 250th anniversary of their country's independence. This is meant to be a humiliation ritual to strip the last of our spiritual, social assets in the process of sacrificing this country. So, in that case, I would say it looks like a resounding success so far. I mean, this is pretty fucking humiliating.
We then learned that the food hall at the Great American State Fair had lost power and all of their food, all of their ice cream had melted. Bro, Melted ice cream, Ferris wheel is down, empty crowds.
I hope melted ice cream doesn't mean nuclear meltdown. This is how you psychologically asset strip a society. I mean, Yuri Bezmenov talks about total demoralization. But this whole Freedom 250 event is meant to be like the death blow for American society in terms of total demoralization. It's clearly meant as a sacrifice of the sense of American pride, any sort of patriotic feeling. So once this American identity has been basically enshittified beyond all recognition by Trump making himself synonymous with America, Trump putting his face all over the city of Washington, D.C., putting his name on the Kennedy Museum, which apparently they just took off, but whatever, and demolishing half the White House to build his data center. Like, it's about which more later. But this is very, very much designed towards an end. This is not accidental. This is not just incompetence. I know that the line is like never attribute to malice that can which be explained by incompetence, but I would argue it's the reverse in this case. With Big Parasite, I mean, these are people whose entire like raison d'etre is to invert, pervert, and subvert everything that they see as an obstacle to them achieving their goals. And spoiler alert, their goals are to subjugate and dominate and forever escape accountability and to rule the world with an iron but very limp fist. The whole thing can be viewed as a microcosm of the negative aspects of the American situation. So you had all of the performers pulling out, except for like Vanilla Ice, because Trump made it all about himself. And this is similar to all of our allies kind of distancing themselves from us on the geopolitical stage because Trump made it all about himself. And that's also one of the traps that they're setting now because Big Parasite, they're using Trump as like the shield, the face that they want to present to the world because they don't want anyone actually going after them, cutting their heads off, ripping their throats out, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, he's basically the stick that we're being beaten with. So Trump is going to get whatever backlash there is. I don't even know if there's going to be any backlash because, as I explained in the previous video, with the jewel wasp as the sort of archetype, they've neutralized our ability to resist in a very scientific way with this hippocampal hijacking with the COVID pandemic and vaccine. So as we were saying, Freedom 250 is a symbolic atlas illuminating the multi-layered asset stripping operation currently targeting the United States. We can start with the power outage, the mysterious power outage of the Ferris wheel. I mean, we know that Israel is backdoored all of our infrastructure. We talked about that a little bit in chapter 1, in addition to the checkpoint system software that is installed on every major US company, apparently, according to that whistleblower that we saw in chapter 1. There's also this, and this goes along with the NDAA amendment and the intelligence sharing amendment. There's so many bills and whatnot that are currently in process to merge the US and Israel all to basically hand control of all of America's profitable or potentially useful or potentially leverage inducing assets to Israel right now that it's really impossible to deny that this is anything other than the organized sacrifice of the United States as a sovereign country. It's going to become a rump state for Israel to feed off of. It's going to be a giant loose plantation, and it's just going to be a really shitty place to live. Because basically, Israel's going to have the ability to backdoor our computer systems and our infrastructure in a way that was previously not possible. And SPM 12 establishes the core governance and administrative backbone for cybersecurity across America's most sensitive national security systems. Create a whole of government entrenchment that subordinates U.S. intelligence, defense, technology, and foreign policy priorities to Tel Aviv's agenda at the expense of American sovereignty, national security, interests, and taxpayers. Yeah, basically they have to, it's multiple hops, but if you combine it with all of the other Israel bills that are currently in process, this would allow, just like the data center, if you look at the data center build out in the context of the NDA amendment, it becomes much more sinister because you realize the data center build out is not for the United States at all. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was a domestic surveillance state, that would be bad enough. That would actually be awful and intolerable yet also, but it's much worse when it's Israel's surveillance state that we will be building with our tax dollars and our natural resources so they can shitify our world. This similarly is building this unified cybersecurity framework so that all our infrastructure is under a unified cybersecurity framework. Then if you look at that in the context of the NDAA, it's much more sinister because that's a unified cybersecurity framework that you're just handing on a silver platter to Israel so they can fucking get in there and lay some eggs. Create structured authority for minimum standards, emergency actions, crypto and technology procurement, including with foreign entities, information sharing platforms spanning unclassified to top secret and sensitive compartmented information levels, and international liaison. These authorities operate without naming specific countries, yet explicitly enable agreements with foreign governments for security material and services. Well, we know that Israel is the cybersecurity capital of the world, so golly gee, I mean, what are you going to do? Get your cybersecurity from China? Nah. Yeah, Pax Silica basically merges the U.S. Tech sector with Israel's and allows Israel to take whatever it wants from our research and development, our semiconductors, our rare earth minerals, AI, cyber, whatever ecosystems by a joint economic development group and positioning Israel as a secure Pax Silicon node. Oh, they would never hack us. Well, yeah, because they're already inside and they fucking control the whole system. So why would they need to hack us? I mean, you have to be fucking retarded or very well paid to not see this. Pax Hilka and the U.S.-Israel Joint Bilateral Agreement further erode American control over critical technology supply chains in ways that dangerously compound the integration already advanced by the five Israel bills and NSPM 12. While framed as a noble effort to reduce dependence on China, Pax Silica opens wide new channels for Israeli firms to access, co-develop, and embed themselves in foundational technologies that feed directly into national security systems, mirroring and amplifying the co-production and tech transfer mandates in the Futures Act, NDAA, Section 224, and Defense Partnership Act. Well, it's 219 now, but yes. Yeah, basically the whole idea is to literally get in and lay metaphorical eggs, like to embed themselves so deeply into our processes that we can't get them out. That's the whole point of the NDAA, as I talked about in chapter one. It's the point of the national intelligence share. It's the point of the intelligence sharing amendment, and this thing because they fear that in the future we might not be so supine in our willingness to tolerate their predation. It's very unlikely because, as I pointed out, the jewel wasp-like attack that they've done on our minds has kind of prevented most people from being able to resist. So even people who like notice that there's something going on that is not good, are not really able to formulate the necessity of a response. Oh, it's always been like this. Therefore, it will always be like this. What are you gonna do? Yeah, have fun being a slave species, dude. Um, Things have to get really shitty for people to like be willing to risk their freedom or their life in order to make things better. And since so many things that would make our lives better are illegal, people are just not willing to put themselves in that position. And it's unfortunate because, of course, as I pointed out in the previous chapter, if everybody in the highway drove at 100 miles an hour, they wouldn't be able to pull us all over. But what are you going to do? We're not talking about cars here, but I think you get what I'm talking about. Yeah, and as she points out, it's like Israel is the one country that we've caught spying on us again and again and again, and literally every chance it gets. Like Benjamin Netanyahu literally put a microphone in fucking Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, bathroom. Like, what the fuck? How psychotic can you be? And then and then they caught them doing it again at the White House again. Like they caught them before. They catch them every couple of years doing some shit in the United States. And of course, the U.S. they have to pretend that Israel didn't just get caught spying on us again. Oh no, we just have to feed them everything. This is part of the humiliation ritual. It's like, well, you elected these people. Oh, no, no, I didn't. I didn't elect these people. I specifically like refrained from electing these people, but I guess, I mean, that's the thing. They can never be you can never be sure. It spreads the responsibility around. So everyone can say, "Well, I didn't vote for him." Well, who did? And there's always that element of uncertainty. I mean, we know that the vote is rigged. We know that it's controlled from both the mail-in ballots and electronic voting machines, but nobody is willing to actually dismantle the electoral system and at least build it up with paper ballots. I mean, like I said before, if you want to have an actual democracy, you need an educated populace, you need free press, and you need accountability. You don't have any of those. So it's impossible to have a democracy. Don't need a Peter Thiel style fucking techno-feudalism shit, although arguably it would be easier to overthrow because people would at least realize they're being oppressed, but it would just enshittify things further, I think. I don't know what the answer is, but we could start by dropping out of the parasite system and forming parallel structures. That's really the only way to go from here, I think. Unless there's like a delete button somewhere hidden in a cave, the big red button, do not press this, and you press it and all the parasites go away. But, I mean, who has that? It's not like there's one thing that you could publicize that like would make their whole structure of control disappear. Or no, it's not like there's 6 million things that you could press that make their, I don't know, I don't and like they cannot leave well enough alone. Israeli firms such as NSO Group have documented history of Pegasus spyware, which enables covert full access device via zero-click exploits. Pegasus was misused against journalists, activists, and U.S. linked targets, leading to U.S. blacklisting. Accreditation of such tools risk introducing permanent backdoors or exfiltration channels into critical systems, undermining the very cybersecurity framework NSPM 12 seeks to strengthen. Sabotine Frankism for the win! Currently, Pegasus is blacklisted by the U.S. government, given the spying cases in U.S. court rulings, but that will be short-lived. Israel lobby is actively pressuring the Trump administration to remove NSO and Pegasus from the blacklist. In fact, the NSO recently hired the former U.S. ambassador to Israel as their chairman in an effort to further pressure the Trump administration through an administration insider. So they'll get what they want immediately. I'm surprised they don't have it yet. Like Israel, literally, their spyware companies call themselves things like Candiru. Do you know what a Candiru is? It's a little fish that swims up your urethra and like, what the fuck? I mean, guys, can you weigh in here? Why? Oh, they just really want you to hate them. I mean, okay, you have it, you have it. Fucking go crazy. Get. Oh, this is important, actually. Yeah, data exfiltration, self-destruction, and system manipulation. Basically, they'll be able to remove proof of their misdeeds from within any sort of surveillance infrastructure that they put in place. This is on the same level of danger as the NDAA. I would say this is actually the worst part of the whole merger of Israel and the U.S. Because this is how they're going to cover up their tracks, because they're going to still be committing atrocities everywhere you look, even once the surveillance grid is in place, but they're going to obviously have to cover their tracks. Tools like Pegasus feature stealth capabilities for data exfiltration, self-destruction, and system manipulation. They'll be able to go into the surveillance system, and when the Mossad agent comes in and slits your throat, the Mossad agent will be removed from the surveillance footage and just shows your throat just bleeding out of nowhere. Oh, he must have did it to himself. Or no, it was God. He got smited because he said unkind things about Sheldon Adelson. This is fucking scary, and this is exactly what they're gonna do. The combined NSPM 712 and build frameworks create plausible risks in high access settings. Could gain privileged access to signals intelligence platforms and supply chains, selective record cleaning, audit trail purging, or exfiltration. This is really fucking scary. So this needs to be opposed. It won't be, at least not from official levels, but something must be done. This cannot go forward. And this is it. It's a rush to get everything in place for the massive sacrifice of American sovereignty. And I mean, I do hope it won't be a literal human sacrifice, but it seems like that's kind of the direction they want to go. One thing that's supposed to happen on July 4th is a bunch of nuclear fission reactors are supposed to go online. How many ways can this go wrong, right? So red, white, and glowing blue. Trump's push for new reactors reaches the finish line. So on July 4th is the deadline for this experimental nuclear reactor program, which, I mean, talk about two words you don't want to hear in the sentence, like experimental nuclear reaction. Oh, great. And we're going to rush to build them. What could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? So, like, they're really trying to just get as many disasters as possible and as many failures and as many, like, catastrophes. I mean, this could be like Chernobyl on steroids. I mean, or if they get attacked, because we've got apparently like 16 quote unquote terrorists running around all over the countries. All the guys they didn't round up from that UFC fight plot, the explosive drone plot, which yeah, it's about as Fed sloppy as it sounds. But they just left. Kash Patel made a point of announcing that they had caught 5 of them when there were at least 2 more that they wanted to catch still running around, and probably a bunch more. And now they're probably not going to just round them up, because at least the Kash Patel signaling, hey guys, if you're still out there, go hide because they're coming for you. He didn't put it that way, of course, but we know what he meant. And Kash Patel, as we know, is blackmailed by his Israeli agent girlfriend. Don't sue me. A little over a year ago, President Trump set an ambitious goal. He wanted to see American companies build at least 3 new experimental nuclear reactors by July 4th, designed to help companies build and run test reactors quickly, in part by radically cutting back on the regulations required for such reactors. It's not that we have those regulations for a reason, right? Nah, nuclear energy is child's play. And with less than a week to go, 2 companies have already reached the goal of switching on their reactor, going critical in nuclear speak. We haven't done anything this fast basically ever, said the chief nuclear officer at Ocean Atomics, which seeks to put nuclear power onto civilian ships. What the fuck? So civilian ships are going to be unwitting nuclear bombs, basically. I think that's what we're talking about here because this is just what Big Parasite would do. I mean, talk about human shields. Jesus Christ. Radiant, which helps build small reactors for everything from disaster relief to data centers. Okay, so Dre Dossier was right. They are definitely going to be using this shit to power the Baylor Room data center. Um, because when you're going to run a surveillance infrastructure operating digital twins of everybody and possibly replacing everybody with those digital twins if they step out of line, it helps to have your own power source. Because, when Israel shuts down the power in order to elicit compliance and shitify society and freak everybody out, you need a backup source for your data center. And small reactors are just the way to go. Oh, that's great. The Energy Department completely rewrote its safety and security standards to make it easier for companies to win regulatory approval. That's one way to do it, I suppose. The cut regulations are unnecessary and the safety hasn't been compromised. Tell me about it, 3 Mile Island. My God. Consulted with companies, but not with the public. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, even the supine, fucking narcotized American public is going to be like, nuclear reactors with no safety regulations. What could go wrong? No, I don't know. Exempt to the new reactors from environmental reviews. Of course, this is another part of the whole thing, as I talked about in chapter one. The data center is designed to acidify the environment, use up the natural resources. It's a whole thing. You got to not only steal everything that's not nailed down, but then steal the nails, then steal the concept of nails. They have to enshittify everything, and that includes the entire land of the United States. It's a big ass landmass. There's a lot of enshittification to do. The test reactors might be working, he said, but that should not be confused with anything related to nuclear power reactor that's capable of producing electricity in a stable and safe way. I'll say, yikes. Yeah, and so, I mean, we're looking at like Stuxnet here, basically. Israel's going to send in some virus, and these things are going to melt down, and it's going to be a shit show. So that might be the big event that they're going for. If they have like a nuclear meltdown or whatever, or I mean, they're saying they're doing it for the powering the supercomputer, but I would be very suspicious. Yeah, because they really they want some sort of dimension shifting event. They shut off the Large Hadron Collider this week, so that's they're clearly trying to create the circumstances for something unusual to develop, let's say.
This is the food court at Trump's Great American State Fair. There's nowhere to sit or eat here, or anywhere in the entire fair. Families are literally sitting on the dirty ground to eat lunch. Damn, look at this. It's an entire family just eating on the side with like a cart next to them that the workers were probably using to assemble this.
We know the no food thing is the food shortages that are coming because of the fertilizer shortage, which is caused by Israel's war in Iran. And it's been what, how many months? About 3 months since the war started. And I mean, when is people's food growing? I don't know. We are about to experience food shortage, I believe, and so at least it's going to be much more expensive, expensive like the food at the state fairs here. So that's problematic, and you do need fertilizer to get good yield out of your crop. Yeah, and also, I would bet money that because the refrigeration failed because the power went out, then the food presumably spoiled. We know they had a bunch of melted ice cream. I would bet money they sold that spoiled food to you for $20 cheeseburgers because this is all meant to represent the worst aspects of what they want America to be. And I bet there's going to be some kind of disease outbreak and it's going to be traced back to the fair. I mean, anyone want to take that bet? And what I'm sure is just a massive coincidence, the phosphate fertilizer company Mosaic is one of the main sponsors of the Freedom 250 celebration. I bet they're making money hand over fist, jacking up their prices. So this is all, the fair is a map. What you do with it is up to you.
Bro, melted ice cream, the Ferris wheel is down, empty crowds, baptisms were happening. Have I mentioned the baptisms yet? Because the baptisms are some of the weirdest parts of this. Check it out.
Ma'am, I just saw you being baptized here at the Great American State Fair.
I was baptized as a baby, but I got away from the Lord. And then in my mid 30s, He brought me back, Jesus. In the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, He has stirred my heart that I had to be immersed in water. I came out of obedience, and I know he did something to get in with me. I felt his joy in my obedience. So his joy in my obedience.
Okay.
His joy in my obedience, she's saying. So this is like really sick on so many levels. I mean, the religious thing is not a fluke or like an aberration in terms of this like Sabbatean Frankist and shittification project. That's one of their primary targets. They know that Americans are more religious than most other Western countries. I would say than all other Western countries. And they want a piece of that. And that's been the whole point of like the military intelligence incursion into like Christian Zionism, which in and of itself can arguably be considered an intelligence operation, although one of a country that didn't exist yet. The whole thing about this Freedom 250 event, it began with the rededication of the United States to under God. Now, of course, you have to ask who's God, which God, because there are a lot of options there. And given the relevant parties, I would think that she should get a receipt for who she got baptized to, because that's it's very likely that she not who she thought she was, no, not who she thought it was. Yeah, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, gave the dedication prayer on the National Mall, led thousands gathered on the National Mall in prayer of rededication, acknowledging God's providence over the last 250 years and seeking his blessing for the next 250. Well, that sounds innocuous enough until you ask who's God. And given that Mike Johnson is the most senior U.S. official to ever visit an Israeli settlement, and given that Israeli settlements are illegal outposts of the dregs of Israeli society, and given that Israeli society itself is already made up of a lot of dregs, I mean, not all Israelis. Obviously, there are some Israelis who are very nice people, just not very many of them and not enough to make a difference. Um, Unfortunately, I mean, I feel bad for them. It's got to suck living in a country like that, but yeah, so he politicizes it a little bit with his 9/11 references thrown in there, references to mercy upon us for our mistakes, as we keep making them. Now, as we approach the 250th anniversary of American independence, we face a new set of challenges in a new era. In recent years, we've seen sinister ideologies sow confusion and discord among our people. And we've been the ones sowing those sinister ideologies. Well, no, they don't say that, but witness attacks on our history, on our heroes, on the cherished moral and spiritual identity of this great nation. We're the ones waging those attacks. The whole thing is crying out in pain as they strike you, but it's just uh, these voices insist to the young and impressionable that our story, the American story, is one of oppression, hypocrisy, and failure, that this story can only be understood through the lens of our sins. And then they go and teach that shit in schools. I mean, dude, this is like what, a couple of years after you guys push the 1619 project. I know Mike Johnson didn't specifically push the 1619 project, but that was a big parasite enterprise. The whole thing was problem reaction solution. They put forth something that there was no way that America would be able to swallow, which was the whole woke thing, the political correctness run amok. And they knew that Americans were not going to be going with that. That maybe some people would, and maybe but the idea would be to present the impression that people were, and then have this rebellion, the Trump rebellion, the Great Awakening, and then that would become the Great Enshittification that we're witnessing now, because problem reaction solution. So Trump was presented as the solution to the woke bullshit, and then, oops, turns out he's more woke than woke. What First Amendment? What freedom of speech? But they don't call it woke, of course, and they call opposition to it woke. But at this point, this is like such an elementary part of the Sabbatean Frankist playbook that it shouldn't even require explanation, because you should just recognize it when you see it. I mean, you do have to, like, for a minute, train yourself to think differently and not be like individually trying to debunk or untangle every single lie. But once you realize, it's like you get to give yourself the glasses from They Live. These are not the glasses from They Live. These are cheap Chinese sunglasses. But yeah, they see religion as one of the most juicy human resources to be mined. And so basically, evangelical Christianity has been co-opted, if not constructed entirely, to provide moral and ideological cover to Big Parasite's rapacious designs on land, on psychological real estate, on religion itself, because belief is their fuel. I mean, belief is power. It's like gasoline for rituals. This is why Christian Zionism was invented in the first place, basically, and why it became an industry in the late 20th century, and why Judeo-Christianity has been basically the name of the game since before I was born. Now it's difficult to find a non-Catholic Christian entity that is not pro-Israel. It's become like the default. And if you ask people who are Christians why they have this attachment to Israel, obviously they claim it's biblical, and they don't realize that there's really no evidence that the people living in Israel now have anything to do with the people who lived in Israel at the time of the Bible. So, you still think he's rededicating America to the Christian God? I don't think so. Rededicating the United States to God right before what is clearly meant to be a giant magical ritual is very sketchy and should be examined closer, let's say. The Trump administration just actually released a 224-page report. 224 pages, like Section 224 of the NDAA. I don't know. What can I say? I recognize patterns. Um, a new report by Trump administration commission suggests replacing the idea of separating church and state with the idea of building bridges between them. So this is from an administration where you've had Trump literally post to his Truth Social feed or whoever does the posting for him, AI-generated images of himself as Jesus, liken himself repeatedly to Jesus during Easter observances at the White House, have his nutso pastor, Paula White, liken him to Jesus during said Easter ceremonies, announce that he should be Pope, attack the actual Pope, and arguably try to set himself up as a god with the whole cult of personality thing. There are actually so many examples of this that I completely forgot about the golden calf statue. Basically to set himself up as the Messiah, and this Adam Green has covered this in detail, but like holding himself up as the Jewish Messiah, basically. So yeah, when you look at when you see that somebody like that wants to build bridges between church and state, that's time to run for the exits, people. I don't see how much clearer it can get when you've got a person who considers himself a god king, and when you have the entire force of Big Parasite behind him, because Trump in and of itself would just be a clown. I mean, you could knock him down with no problem, but like Trump, backed by the entire force and machinery of Big Parasite, is a force to be reckoned with, as you can see from the shitification of this country. The advisory body was created by President Trump last year and filled almost entirely by conservative Christians, which just means Christian Zionists in this context. 224-page draft report, part policy document, part philosophical argument, part Sabbatean Frankist assault on all that is good and true. They bury the fucking lead way down in here. It calls for combating anti-Semitism through various legal tools. Well, that has nothing to do with religious observance. Why would you put that in a bill about building bridges between church and state? Oh, because you want to turn us into a fucking Noahide slave colony. Okay, well that makes more sense. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up because it was a little confusing. So this is about getting a legal cover for the Trump's anti-Semitism push, because, like I said in the previous video, he's rededicating the Justice Department to serving the interest of Israel. There's no real way around that. Everything is being sacrificed to what can we do for you, Big Parasite? That's not what your parasite can do for you. Ask what you can do for your parasites. And Trump can do a lot at this point, or at least. Yeah, Trump's Religious Liberty Commission was the one that had the Catholic woman, Carrie Prejean, stand up and said that she stand up and asked the rabbi who was in attendance whether it was anti-Semitic to not be a Zionist. And the rabbi said yes. And she said, "Are you calling me an anti-Semite?" And he said, "Well, I wouldn't go that far." Because, of course, confrontation, they don't do direct confrontation well. That's why it's always let you and him fight. Let me build this golem to do my confronting for me. I'll call it the United States. Seriously. I mean, I don't want to say that the whole thing was a parasitic op from the beginning, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Trump wants to join the long line of political leaders who've attempted to make themselves gods. So it's easy to see why Trump wants to become a god, because if you're a god, you don't have to pay attention to little things like laws, which, I mean, the whole point of the 17 Frankish thing is to invert norms and to not obey laws and to like rub all that shit in your face. So that's why when you got a guy jerking off in front of the opening ceremony of the sparsely attended World's Fair in the State Fair, I mean, that's just in keeping with the program. He probably is going to get a Presidential Medal of Honor for that. Maybe one of these new religious freedom medals of honor that the report from the Religious Liberty Commission has decided is going to be a thing. I mean, if Mary Mandelson gets one, then the guy jerking off should get one. He's done a lot for the Sabbatean Frankist cause, and goddamn it, he's going to be rewarded. Seriously, I bet he's on the payroll I mean, I suspected, I mean, I just kind of like casually said offhand, like, I bet that all of these Freedom 250 celebrations are all inside dealing. And the reason why everything looks so shoddy and is falling apart is because it's Trump's buddies that did all the work and they pocketed the money. And it turns out that's exactly what happened in a way that's been documented to more than I thought it actually would be. Like, it is the epitome of a Sabbatean Frankist World's Fair or a state fair. They actually had like a committee that had been around for many years, like a nonpartisan committee. I think it was the Smithsonian that was planning this event, to make it a festival of festivals and get legitimate festivals and like big musical artists to come and perform for free for everybody. And it was going to be a whole thing. The problem was when they went to try to get permits this year, the Trump administration wouldn't give them. And the Trump administration took the permits and gave them to their buddies. So that's why all the state pavilions look so last minute. That's why everything's all shit, because it's been Trumpified. And Trumpified is he's like Ice Nine, if you've read the Kurt Vonnegut story, Midas Touch, basically, which is funny because Midas Touch is like a big anti-Trump channel, whatever. But yeah, so everything turns to shit. It's frustrating to see people cover this and not understand what that means. Like, there's no way that anybody could have such a reverse Midas touch, touching everything and it turns to shit by accident. That's just not possible. Like, if it's a mistake, then you would do some things that would turn out better than expected, and you would do some things that would turn out shit. But Trump, everything turns to shit. It's like everything. And there's nothing that he's done for this country that has really worked out well. I mean, if you can come up with anything, please share. I don't mind being proven wrong on this point, but like I can't think of anything. Even the stuff that like started out good has not ended well. And even, of course, all the stuff he said he was going to do, I don't want to hear about the things he said he was going to do. I know he made a lot of promises that people actually believe, which I'm sorry if you believed him, you need your head examined, especially after the first term. But there wasn't really anything he did that like worked out well, and that was deliberate. So, I mean, yes, some people's investments went up, but I'm saying that worked out well, and we're seeing what's going to happen with the investments. I mean, the divorce of the actual value of companies and the stock market from real economy is not going to end well for the country when the binge is over and we crash down to the bottom of the cliff.
A fair old walk. There's a place where there's a booth from Truth Social, SpaceX, and TikTok right next to each other. And there are
Oh boy, so there's a lot going on there. Those are the three companies that apparently embody the American identity. You know what Truth Social is? That's the Sabbatean Frankist assault on truth. Read my article, Grand Theft Reality, or watch the video if you're not aware of exactly how truth is under assault today. But TikTok, that's a big one. Larry Ellison's TikTok now, so it's another propaganda arm and a particularly insidious one because TikTok we know Larry Ellison is the most surveillance happy motherfucker on the planet. Now, TikTok was the platform where the quote unquote terrorists who planned to attack the UFC event on the White House lawn recruited. And that's a little odd because you'd think Larry Ellison is the most surveillance happy motherfucker on the planet. There are many recordings of him talking about how he thinks that everything we all do should be surveilled so that we are all on our best behavior.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video.
So why did he let these people recruit for a violent assault on his buddy Trump's big gladiator match? That's a little odd, right? I mean, when you look more into what was supposed to happen at this event, it's very suspicious. First, they caught this like 19-year-old kid from Ohio whose mother supposedly called the cops on him because he bought a bunch of guns. and was talking about killing people. But the point was that it was his mom, so it was like an ignominious thing that like, oh, he got time dropped on him by his mom. And the whole thing was that they used his Christian faith to recruit him, Christian faith against him. As I said in the earlier video, one should be extremely suspicious of anybody who's presenting their aims as making America Christian again. Sorry, Candace, but that's just the way it is. Because Israel has a history of using religious resistance groups, of funding religious resistance groups or creating religious resistance groups in order to prevent stronger, broader-based secular resistance groups from taking hold. So when you see a group presenting itself as Christian resistance, well, chances are feds love. So his parents tipped off the police on June 10th. They've been planning this with random people online for like 3 months. And so all this was happening. I mean, it was mostly happening on Signal and Simple X, which is another encrypted messenger. But there was also some stuff going on Telegram, which I think is how some of the other guys got caught. I mean, newsflash, if you're planning anything kinetic, please don't use Telegram. It's not actually encrypted unless you start an encrypted chat with somebody, but even then, it's probably not encrypted. I wouldn't trust it any more than I would trust WhatsApp. Signal, on the other hand, is actually encrypted, and it looks like the only reason they were able to get signal messages from these people is because this Tyson Proper guy sang like a bird because he's a fucking 19-year-old kid, and what do you expect? The thing is that like you don't go into one of these operations if your life is going well. It's just like getting a Neuralink. Some people get Neuralinks, some people plot to kill politicians. I mean, I think one of these things is obviously much more noble and worthy than the other, but if you're going to plot to kill politicians, at least do it right. This is like a master class on how not to do it. There's a lot about this explosive drone plot that is sketchy as fuck. So first, the fact that they're charging a 19-year-old kid who got dimed out by his mom as the ringleader of a violent plot to attack the UFC event at the White House. That screams like dude was being handled. And indeed, they eventually revealed there were more senior people in the group. So it was local cops who got him. That's interesting. Why wasn't it the FBI? That's their whole thing, right? Yeah, well, his mother called the local cops. So it wasn't the FBI. It wasn't Larry Ellison's TikTok. It was local cops and his mom, which means that the FBI probably wanted it to happen, or would have let it happen, or oh, this is interesting. They seem to have removed the bit about people how they got vetted in the Signal chat. So once the individual had proven himself to be an established member of the group on TikTok, they were then transitioned to a vetted and more secure Signal chat. They were asking people to submit copies of their government-issued ID. That defeats the whole purpose of Signal. The fucking whole point is that it's anonymous and encrypted. Why would you submit a copy of your government ID? There's a lot we can learn from this bullshit. Don't do what they did, basically. And then apparently, cops were pissed that Kash Patel revealed the investigation before they had caught everybody that they were looking for. And indeed, I mean, they've only got 7 out of the 23 or whatever. That's questionable because normally they would round up everybody. Not that they necessarily should, given that they haven't committed a crime yet, but it's interesting that, especially that it was Kash Patel that did it. I think that he was giving the feds in the group a chance to get away so that their cover isn't blown and that they can continue on to do whatever they want to do on July 4th, which, according to the affidavit, is attacking one of the FIFA games. I think they're not going to stop with Kansas City. I think that they're going to want to do something in Washington, D.C. But the point was that this plot, quote unquote, didn't end with the UFC fight. And they expressed ultra-religious and anti-government sentiments, specifically citing grievances about government corruption, the handling of the Epstein files, data centers taking up all the water in communities, and other government actions, court record said. Supposedly he was going after people who received funding from AIPAC. Well, dude, that's like all of Congress. But they wanted to make it seem like, oh, because he used AIPAC tracker to look up how much money people got from AIPAC, that's like somehow targeting, I don't know. Literally, you could have just aimed at Congress, spray and pray, and you get a whole bunch of AIPAC recipients. But nobody should do that. That would be wrong. Well, what they're trying to do here is it's the same paradigm as what they're trying to do with internet censorship and what they've already done with internet censorship in Europe, which is to take a belief held by a bad group, in this case, this militia group, and make it so that nobody else is allowed to hold that belief, even though that belief in and of itself might not be necessarily illegal or even unpopular. Like, say the group does something, so the group is doing something that's illegal, they're plotting to attack a major public event, but they also believe the government is corrupt. So they take the criminal aspect and they sort of smear the popular belief with it, which is that the government is corrupt, which is self-evident. No one can really deny that, at least not seriously. And then they say, well, since they're terrorists, everything they believe is terrorism. So they might think the sky is blue, but that's also terrorist. So people holding these beliefs in government corruption, belief that the Epstein files should be released, opposition to data centers. We already know that the NSPM 7 memo it purports to include anti-government extremism, anti-capitalism, and other beliefs that are very highly held among American people with a pulse uh, as terrorist ideology. And it's hard to get real support for that because most people are against data centers. People are against certain elements of capitalism, at least. And so it's hard to demonize people who have those beliefs as terrorists. So they have to get a bunch of events like this in order to get people to not only be okay with the prosecution of people for holding those beliefs, but to police those beliefs in themselves. Because, as I've said in many articles, the eventual goal in terms of censorship is outsourcing thought policing to the individual. So you're supposed to thought police yourself. You're supposed to think, well, I just had an uncharitable thought about Sheldon Adelson, but that's anti-Semitic, so I'm going to not have that thought anymore. And eventually, once they have the data centers up and running, and once they have the technology operational to run digital twin simulations of everyone ever, they'll find ways to make sure you don't have those thoughts at all, and certainly that you can't share them. I mean, that's what the eventual goal is of stuff like Checkpoint. But they found a journal among Propper's belongings that included writing about the government controlling people, and a large group worships a demonic figure and sacrifices children to it. Well, I mean, not to put too fine point on it, and they aren't literally sacrificing the children, but they are certainly sacrificing their biometrics. Also on July 4th, the day is Trump accounts open, an investment account for kids, an IRA for newborns. To open one, the government takes the child's name, their date of birth, their parents, and their social security number. So on day one, you have the federal system enrolling an entire generation of American children by social security number, some of them only days old. Now, this in and of itself wouldn't necessarily be ominous, but the fact is that site goes live on July 4th, and this Trump accounts website is part of this whole ecosystem of parallel government websites constructed by this agency that called the National Design Studio. The whole idea is to build a parallel structure of the U.S. government to hoard people's data and then privatize it. Because this National Design Studio is under the cover of the Executive Office of the President, which means it's not subject to Freedom of Information Act and other oversight that normally comes with being a government website or a government property. So they've got the website that you're supposed to get your passports. I recommend people read this article. I posted it on my Substack, but because what they're eventually going to be able to do, what they're going to be able to do if all this stuff is on privatized databases, which it will be because this is National Design Studio is just Doge renamed. Basically, it's all the same people doing the same things. So this National Design Studio is creating this Trump accounts, and who doesn't want a savings account for their child? Who isn't going to just offer up their biometrics? It's not like National Design Studio would then give those over to Oracle, which would use them, vectorize them to run a digital twin simulation of your child from birth and be able to experiment in whole new ways. Because, they have customer data now, they have biometrics now, but they've never been able to run full-on digital twin simulations of people from birth. You're not sacrificing your child literally, your child is technically still alive, but you're offering them up to Oracle to have their way with them, let's say. And that's pretty scary because they could theoretically use these biometrics to just turn the child's digital twin into some kind of sleeper assassin. You got to use your imagination with these things because obviously they're not going to say what they're going to do, but the possibilities are alarming. This is going to allow them to fine-tune their algorithm to an extent not previously possible. This is really bad, and nobody is paying attention to it. And even Dre Dossier here, who is doing a good job exposing this stuff on a basic level in terms of this is what is actually there, but not what it actually means. She gets into it with the passports thing and points out that these things could be used to basically silence inconvenient citizens or immigrants or whoever the government doesn't want to be able to use government services. But it's actually a lot worse because once they start running digital twin simulations that are relatively accurate and that are plugged into all these systems, they can just remove you and substitute the digital twin. So it would look suspicious if a bunch of American dissidents suddenly disappeared from official life and stopped transacting any financial stuff electronically and stopped logging onto the internet and all of this thing. If they just disappeared from public life entirely. They don't have to if you have a digital twin simulation of you running with all your data that behaves exactly like you. And who's going to know? I mean, you're not going to be able to complain. You won't be able to even use your phone because you'll be locked out of all your systems. It's really fucking ominous, and that's part of the whole sacrifice thing. So the fact that they're doing this with children is a child sacrifice. Well, you be the judge. They're building up a whole parallel government infrastructure to hoard your biometrics and privatize them, make them unsearchable, because most government websites are subject to like FOIA requests, which they've learned to circumvent anyway, the Trump administration. But she talks about this privatized slash unaccountable clones, basically invasion of the body snatcher clones of all these government agency websites, and how it's being created by this national design studio, which, speaking of aesthetic terrorism, they're literally using design as weapons. So, I mean, I don't know where they got that idea, but certainly the fact that it's Doge all over again, and Doge is being sued in court right now for like stealing people's personal information. And this new agency, this National Design Studio, has a nice like innocuous facade. Oh, national design, how bad can it be? But it's the same exact thing. They're just hoarding biometrics for the privatization. And as I discussed in the last video, these are going to go straight into Oracle databases, which is basically the Israeli surveillance infrastructure. This is not for Americans. This is not, it's a surveillance state, and adding insult to injury, it's an Israeli surveillance state. And so we are going to be the ones being surveilled. We will not have any ability to do anything about it, and they're locking it out of accountability by putting it behind this Presidential Records Act. By all of this, this National Design Studio is under the executive office of the president, so it's not even like a searchable agency anymore. And yeah, it's all going to be in this private data center under the White House, and this ballroom, the bail room. No, she doesn't go far enough, I think, in the conclusions that she draws from this. But she talks about whoever controls the machine that decides who counts as a verified legitimate person of the government also controls the opposite, the question of who does not count. Same system that can wave you across the border can just as easily lock you out, and people running it can flag you, challenge your status, or freeze access to your benefits and your own records without ever explaining why. When that happens, identity verification stops being a service to help prove who you are and becomes a sorting tool, a way of deciding who's real, who's loud, and who is not. That's the important part. I meant to do a whole article about Sam Altman and WorldCoin, which similarly claims to be able to verify users with this like dystopian looking orb that they put in front of people and then scan their iris, and then that's supposed to be like your global identifier. Basically, it's an attempt to create like a global crypto financial system that is like Philip K. Dick's nightmares on steroids. And of course, Sam Altman is the face they put on it. So you got that on one side, and you got this is the public sector version of that. And beyond that, I think what they're trying to do, once they have your biometrics, once they have all of your data, and these passports.gov website is supposed to go live on July 4th. And yeah, once they have all your data, then they can run digital twin simulations of you. And if you're an inconvenient person that they want to deny personhood, they can remove you from your ability to transact electronically in any way and do any business with the government and do any business in the private sector. And they can substitute your digital twin, who they've just outfitted with all of your information. And they do have all of it. Oracle has everything you've ever done online, all of your health information, all of your banking information, all of your demographic info, social security number, everything that is an identifying, like all your location data from your phone. All the big tech companies run on Oracle servers, so they have everything. And then they can just run the digital twin simulation of you, which is a great predictive policing tool because outfitted with everything you've ever done, it knows exactly what you're going to do next, possibly before you do. And then that can be plugged into the system so it appears that you're still out there behaving like yourself. But meanwhile, the actual you is cut out of being able to do anything in society in the United States. And you can't get out of the United States because your passport doesn't work. They won't give you a passport, or they won't give you a passport if it's not if you don't have one yet. So that's alarming, and the fact that there is so little attention being paid to this because it just seems like it's some like niche thing, like, oh well, it gives a shit about like government websites or whatever. But this is serious. Given that Larry Ellison is basically the devil perched on Trump's shoulder, this is not this is not good. So yeah, if I disappear and then suddenly start posting shit that doesn't sound like me at all, and then start saying, "Oh, I was wrong about Israel," etc., etc., you can bet that my digital twin has been parachuted in to take over the job of piloting the identity that once was mine. And yeah, I think that we should be very just like you should be aware and have a safe word with your loved ones when you're on the phone and you get a random call from someone claiming to be your daughter. Oh, I was in a car accident. I need you to wire me $2,000 right now. And then you like ask her for the word, and then you find out it's a scammer in India or whatever. We should have this for like internet communications in general. I don't know how best to do that because, of course, a digital twin simulation could come up with a safe word. Two, it should be an unpredictable one that your digital twin wouldn't know that you're gonna have. It's a loaded gun, and right now the only thing standing between you and the wrong end of it is trust in the people holding it. And if you have trust in the people holding it, you need your fucking head examined. Sorry. That's actually not the only example of quote unquote child sacrifice. There's also this Patriot Games, which if it sounds like the Hunger Games, you're on the right track. Patriot Games is will bring together the nation's most exceptional young athletes and leaders for an unforgettable competition honoring excellence and the American spirit. 2026 Patriot Games is a premier national competition featuring outstanding high school students from across the nation. Male and female athletes will be selected to represent their home state or territory on a national stage as they compete in a series of high-intensity challenges designed to test strength, speed, agility, teamwork, resilience, and leadership. So it's not like they're playing, it's not like the Olympics. It's not like they're really good at a sport and they're going to go compete at that sport. It's some sketchy, high intensity challenges. It's the fucking Hunger Games, dude. Especially with the food shortages coming up. It's literally going to be the Hunger Games. So athletes will face a series of demanding physical and mental challenges, culminating in the crowning of one male and one female Patriot Games champion. Jesus fucking Christ. Big Parasite is not creative, so they use other people's intellectual property. Nationally televised primetime event showcasing America's next generation of leaders and athletes to audiences across the countries. Participation includes an all-expense paid trip for each athlete and one chaperone. This is fucking ridiculous. It is the Hunger Games. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to come to that conclusion, but this is insane. Anybody who would participate in this needs their head examined. But and plus $125,000, that's not gonna buy shit in fucking 6 months. Oh, it's not in 6 months. It's in 1 month. Okay, so this is happening in August. This isn't happening in July. So the human sacrifice, the child sacrifice might have to wait. But that Trump accounts thing, I mean, metaphorically at least, that is child sacrifice. If you're submitting your digital twin, the digital twin of your child, to a government that has shown it does not have your best interests in mind, Moloch is going to take a big bite out of that kid. But getting back to the plot. I mean, it's just a cascade of like humiliating details, which you wonder why they released all these complaints because a lot of times they don't, or a lot of times they'll be redacted or whatever. I think it's because of the humiliating details. Like the one guy is supposed to drive across to DC from California, and he can't even get out of California before his car breaks down. That's the quintessentially American problem. That's how you know he wasn't fed. Yeah, and then everybody's ratting on each other. So they're just trying to create the specter of hopelessness that like this is what happens when you read. And the fact that he knew that they were looking for his co-conspirators and he still didn't like leave, that's ridiculous. Yeah, and then the other guy is just stealing their money and not giving them the drones that he promised to print them. So it's just like a series of humiliations, and we're supposed to be believing that anyone who would try to do such a thing is a similarly low life type person. Since in the same way that in after 9/11 they were like, "You're with us and you're with the terrorists" if you were against the war. It's now you're with us or you're with the terrorists if you think the Epstein files should be released or that data centers don't belong in your community or, etc. Oh, and they're planning on attacking the World Cup game in Kansas City on July 3rd. But that's just, I mean, that's why we got to leave 12 of them running around because they still need to do that. And obviously, we're not going to get our police state if we don't have a few more terror attacks. But another thing that's notable is that the discussion in this document, they're talking about they wanted to do 3 events to kick off the revolution. And one of those was going to be the Kansas City thing. One of them was going to be attacking the UFC. And then there was an unspecified third one. So I would say there's probably 3 events that they're going to do to mark this human sacrifice. Be an attack on the July 4th fireworks celebration in DC, Probably an attack on the celebration in New York because for the first time ever, they're gonna drop the Times Square ball in Times Square on July 3rd at midnight. So everyone's gonna be looking up at the sky. I wonder what they're gonna see there. I mean, it's not like they haven't been fucking telegraphing this alien bullshit for months now. I suspect they're going to try to pull some sort of false flag event, whether it's the first interplanetary false flag. There's all this UFO disclosure bullshit is clearly leading up to some great big stage Project Blue Beam nonsense where they try to convince us that we all have to unite under the banner of Big Parasite because the aliens are here and they're gonna kill us and eat us. Or if you're Stephen Greer, the Mossad asset, oh, they're gonna be really friendly and awesome and we need to like be their friends. And that means sacrificing also our agency. And it all ends up in the same place. It's gonna be one world totalitarian government either way. And the aliens are just the means to an end. But if that fails, if the state fair that's been associated with the Freedom 250 celebration is any indication, there's not going to be too many people there for the Freedom 250 event. I really think they're going to pull this shit. I mean, all of the indications have been there. They've been trying to get Christian Zionist pastors, big influencers, to get their followers prepared for UFO disclosure. Out of nowhere, all of these legitimate quote unquote news organizations were suddenly sharing this story about a Brazilian psychic, some random bitch on Instagram, had a terrifying vision that on June 24th, this is several days ago, spoiler alert, it didn't happen, but the fact that like every news outlet shared this and that the Miami airport actually made a comment about it. A social media clip shared in early June, Brazilian spiritist Vô Bahiana described what she said was a recurring dream involving extraterrestrials setting up a soccer stadium in South Florida during the FIFA World Cup. The FIFA is supposed to be at the center of a lot of these psyopage. We'd start with a spacecraft carrying around 100 alien beings arrives above the field before a much larger mothership appears overhead. I have to tell you that I dreamed again about it. Yeah, anyway, translation of the Daily Mail is also, they've been pushing the UFO thing really hard. So there's at least a certain faction is trying to psyop us with the first interplanetary false flag. Yeah, so obviously didn't happen. Why did they push this? Why were all these like news organizations carrying it? Who has almost 24 million followers on Instagram. The creatures arriving from the skies would use giant mechanical arms to lift players, referees, and supporters to the craft. She also claimed a second ship would appear carrying reptilians. Mysterious beings frequently discussed in UFO circles and conspiracy theories. There's no scientific evidence that reptilians exist, and claims that they secretly control human society remain unproven. Okay, well, I'm glad they cleared that up. Talk about like having a weak debunking in order to get people to more believe in the thing you're pretending to debunk. That's one of their favorite tactics these days. In the same way that like they'll attack the media establishment will attack someone that they want you to like because they know that that everybody hates the media establishment. So this is how like Trump and Elon Musk and all these people have escaped criticism by like otherwise rationally thinking people because they're like, well, the media hates them. They must be awesome. No, not quite. They've figured out that we hate the newsflash. These will deport aliens. Oh, but by the way, yeah, yes, the whole thing about Stephen Greer being the Mossad agent is legit. He worked for the Baha'i Center in Haifa, Israel, and his whole career before he became Mr. UFO Man is kind of not legit, and this him being a doctor and whatnot, it seems like he was more just like the Baha'i is a cover for Israeli intelligence. They run around the world pretending to be a religious organization and getting all up in your society while experiencing the benefits of religious tolerance. Because remember, they weaponize our better instincts against us. So tolerance is great in theory, unless you got a bunch of parasites running around like taking cover behind religious identity. The Baha'i World Center is recognized by Israeli authorities. How do Israeli authorities treat other religions that try to set up shop in Israel? That should tell you everything you need to know about this religion. Anyway, he's obviously doing the bidding of somebody other than what he presents himself as. If there is intelligent life in the universe, and I fully believe that there is, I think that it's rather hubristic to believe that we're the only intelligent species in the universe. But if there is intelligent life out there, it's gonna take one look at humanity and be like, oh, I think I'm gonna skip that planet. These people are fucked up. So yeah, that's just ridiculous. Nobody with half a brain would come to this planet. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. Or they're already here. And but there's more more signs of Israeli involvement in this alien psyop. Baba Vanga, who allegedly foretold 9/11 in the COVID pandemic, was a Bulgarian mystic and clairvoyant who became a cult figure among conspiracy theorists after several of her eerie pronouncements came true, including some occurred decades after her death. So the whole thing with Baba Vanga is that like every single one of her prophecies that came true are events that Israeli intelligence had some hand in bringing about. She's been credited with predicting 9/11 and the COVID pandemic and the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, all of which were at least partially caused by the Big Parasite axis.
Let's just call it the axis of weasel. Obviously, it stops being a prophecy when you're the one making it happen. However, the prophecy business is ideal if you happen to control the entire Western media apparatus, for example.
These prophecies apparently have been used by Israel as material for plotting their psyops. Because remember, Big Parasite is not creative.
Okay, so if they're so uncreative, how did they learn to strip psychological and spiritual assets?
Well, it helps to get into people's minds and lay eggs, literally. Well, the jewel wasp has certainly got the name recognition. I mean, you can't get much more on the nose than jewel wasp. And certainly its behavior is very much in keeping with that of Big Parasite. However, this Glyptopantales, whose females inject their eggs into living caterpillars from the side. The larvae mature, feeding on the caterpillar's body fluids before gnawing through its skin en masse and emerging into the light of day. Despite the trauma, not only does the caterpillar survive, initially at least, but the larvae proceed to mind control it, turning their host to a bodyguard that protects them as they spin their cocoons and finish maturing. Then finally, the caterpillar starves to death, but only after the tiny wasps emerge from their cocoons and fly away. I mean, if you look at the relationship between the US and Israel around 9/11, the metaphor is obvious. The trauma, of course, 9/11, Israel flew remote control, flew some planes into some buildings, and that deeply wounded the United States. It was not a fatal wound, certainly, but a very significant wound to our sense of invulnerability, born of our geographic isolation, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we survived, initially at least, but we were mind controlled into bodyguarding the Israelis to the extent of fighting a bunch of wars for them, losing thousands of our own people in the process, permanently injuring many more. It's all good for Big Parasite, am I right? They spin their cocoons and finish maturing. That's what's happening now with the NDAA and the intelligence sharing agreement. They're getting ready to pack their bags with all of our stuff and fly away, at which point we will starve to death. Thank you, controlled demolition of our economy, which has been going on over many decades. That didn't just start now. I mean, what do you think this SpaceX IPO is all about? And OpenAI and Anthropic now want to do IPOs too, despite their execrable finances and total lack of ever being profitable. Bernie Sanders is being used as moral cover to set up this AI sovereign wealth fund. I mean, talk about getting a berth on the Titanic when it's already hit the iceberg. That is the most massive and obvious asset stripping operation I can think of. It's so in your face, and people think, oh, AI, we should get a share of AI profits. Well, guess what? Those companies aren't profitable. They never will be. AI doesn't make money. That's the whole point. It's designed to provide parallel construction for why the economy is collapsing. Economy is collapsing because every single support has been fucking stripped out of it and financialized and leveraged all this shit. It's not because like AI is somehow failed or whatever. I mean, AI was never designed to make money. The whole thing is that they're going to force it down our throats and reorient the economy around it, and then find a way to dupe the American people into paying for it. And this is how they do it. And say, oh, sovereign wealth fund. Who doesn't want a sovereign wealth fund? I mean, they're doing so good for Norway and Saudi Arabia or whatever. Yeah, but those have profitable industries. Now, there was a Guardian article examining some of the problems with this AI sovereign wealth fund, which is that the government will then be incentivized to make decisions that privilege AI companies, and that is a problem. But the government is already reorienting itself around AI companies. Larry Ellison is controlling Trump pretty much completely. So, like, that's not the main problem. The main problem is that there's no way to share profits that don't exist. And 50% of zero is still zero. So, and Anthropic is just bad. So this is a joke. This is designed to get Americans on board with the data center build out again, because obviously everybody opposes this. Some of these things are actually getting blocked. And I discussed in the previous one what they might do to solve that problem. But this is another means of solving that problem. Get people to believe that they're part of the thing that's oppressing them. It's in the same way that the whole phony democratic franchise does. OpenAI and Anthropic spend billions of dollars a year And the only reason they're still operational is because they're getting all this money from investors who want in on the ground floor of this control apparatus. People like that fucking creep Mark Andreessen with his weird cone head who thinks that AI is the philosopher's stone. I mean, like I said, these people are not subtle about their use of like ritual and mysticism and occult strategies to gain power. That's kind of their whole thing, and it always has been. And we ignore that at our peril. So, of course, today we don't need self-appointed prophets like Baba Vanga or even this Brazilian woman who predicted the mass abduction of the FIFA soccer team. We have prediction markets, which are basically the same thing. The idea is to weaponize the egregore, to use the people's belief that a thing is going to happen to actually make the thing happen. And that's what all these prediction markets are about. That's why the Trump kids are invested in it, thus keeping it legal and out of regulatory scrutiny. And it's also, I mean, that also has an aspect of making you complicit in your own oppression, because if you invest your money in the event that you don't want to happen, but that you know is going to happen anyway, it kind of like it secures your consent, at least on some level. And they've More Perfect Union did a good job exposing these markets, but it's gambling, it's legalized gambling, we know that. But the idea that it's usually the house always wins, so these prediction markets are the ones putting up the bet against whatever you're betting for. And a lot of times, it's the whole thing is designed to harvest insider information. So again, to privatize what's supposed to be in the public sector, aka state secrets, people who know when the government of Venezuela is going to be kidnapped are going to say, oh, Venezuela is going to have a regime change in 24 hours. How do you know that? Well, I'll bet against you. That doesn't seem likely. And then, of course, it happens. And you ask, okay, so who's like shopping out their insider information? It's much more efficient as an asset stripping operation than merely having some bitch prophecy on Instagram. So that's like, I mean, that obviously that's the way of the future in terms of prophesying, in terms of weaponizing the egregore. If they can get you any way that they can get you to participate in these structures of resource extraction from yourself, they literally have you asset stripping yourself. That's how lazy they are. They won't even do it themselves. It's like they just want to sit back and fuck kids and ride yachts. And they want you to do the heavy lifting of separating yourself from your assets and your intellectual capabilities and your social bonds. No, you have to do that. We're too busy with the kids here. They're promoting this kind of behavior because they want us to be just as shitty as them. And I know I don't like us them dichotomies either, but at a certain point, you have to realize that these people are not our kind of people, let's say. I mean, literally does not play well with others. I realize that most people just want to be left alone, and they refuse to leave well enough alone, including you. So like, there's no appeasing these people. Which is why they constantly say you can't appease fascists. Well, y'all are the dictionary definition of fascist. And take a look at the Freedom 250 website. If we look at fascism as a merger of corporate and state power and an authoritarian bent, hiding the boot, stomping in your face under a veneer of nationalism, and demonizing an outgroup. Well, I mean, demonizing an outgroup isn't part of the celebration, but we literally have like these are the sponsors of Freedom 250, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan event, by the way. Yeah, right next to the EPA, you've got ExxonMobil and Chevron. I mean, this is the most Sabbatine Frankist fucking inversion, subversion, perversion of American ideals, or of the ideals that are supposed to underpin our government. The idea of accountability, the idea of like independent, or the idea of not being fucking subservient to a billionaire class. This is so bad. I mean, I'm not usually at a loss for words, but there have been multiple instances in researching this video slash article that I have just had to throw my hands and be like, what the fuck, yo? MasterCard, which is cooperating with Big Parasite in trying to get an end run around the First Amendment, forbidding the payment processing on websites that it doesn't like, whether that's gun manufacturers or just people whose speech it doesn't like, people selling products that it doesn't like, whatever. The government should not be able to tell you what you can and cannot buy. I mean, unless the thing is actually illegal, which is not in this case. Yeah, Palantir. Oh, good. Palantir is on here. I know I feel better when my 250th anniversary celebration is sponsored by the fucking engine powering the surveillance state. Trust for the National Mall. Oh, who are they going to auction it off to? Because we know that that's what trust means. Remember, this is Sabbatine Frankist land. Words don't have their meanings. It's like the Kabbalah. You can either approach the things from what they actually say, or you can approach them from their hidden meaning. And in this case, trust means don't trust these motherfuckers. UFC, I mean, people have been comparing the United States to the collapsing Roman Empire for probably as long as I've been alive, at least. And Trump, rather than, trying to dodge that comparison, is like, yes, we will have gladiator fights on the White House lawn. In fact, sacrifice your children for the Patriot Games. Literally the Hunger Games. I mean, hence NASA Mosaic. A mosaic is like oh, that's fertilizer. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I bet they're doing great now that fertilizer is so hard to come by. Raytheon. Yeah, that's just what we need. More Raytheon. More Goy slop. Miracle Grow. I guess bullshit doesn't do too well as fertilizer, huh? Oh, Oracle. Good. I was gonna say, we have Palantir. We can't not have Oracle. I mean, it goes together like peanut butter and nut allergies. Northrop Grumman. Oh, good. United Health Group. That's an inspiration to us all. Yeah, this is like the worst aspects of America, the most obnoxious, the most like corporate corporate captured, the most, I mean, yeah, and then a few token like government agencies just for shits and giggles. Basically, yeah, this is a shit show and oh, freedom trucks. There's nothing more American than the open road. Follow the freedom trucks, our mobile museums as they travel across the USA. See where freedom rolls next. Over your rights, motherfucker. Freedom 250's mobile museums, known as the Freedom Trucks, will tell the story of America's founding using AI-generated videos and artwork. What could go wrong? I mean, given that like one of the first AI headlines was like Google's AI generating pictures of the founding fathers, but they turned out to be black, and it was like, what the fuck is this? So AI-generated videos and artwork are not exactly what we would consider accurate when it comes to like the founding mythology of America. But we know these people aren't interested in accuracy. Certainly, they feature content from Hillsdale College, a Christian liberal arts school in Michigan that's like supported by Barry Weiss, so I don't know how Christian it actually is. And PragerU, a conservative media organization that publishes educational materials aimed at combating a dominant left-wing ideology. Okay, we know PragerU, their whole thing is Israel first, Israel last, and Israel always. With apologies to Andrew Eldridge. I mean, this is ignominious as fuck. You go into this thing and you're propagandized by like the Zio-fascist version of U.S. history. And how much you want to bet it's the same company that does those October 7th buses that they've been parking at people's churches. You can't have a celebration like this without shoehorning parasites in from the beginning. So there's been this campaign ongoing for several years now to recast the founding of this country as a Judeo-Christian thing. These are just ordinary important prayers that were made in the early United States. The first prayer in Congress, Washington Circular, Jewish blessing for the government. Oh, really? How many Jews were there in the 13 colonies? I looked it up. There were 2.7, 2.8 million people in the 13 colonies before it became the United States. There were like a couple hundred Jews, and we're supposed to believe that they were critical, mission critical to the revolution. This is like 5 years after the New York Times infamously published its 1619 project, which basically alleged that the United States was founded because of slavery and therefore was evil, bad, and wrong. And probably no Jews had anything to do with that. Whatever you do, don't read the secret relationship between blacks and Jews published by the Nation of Islam. Don't read that book. Very informative. So this is apparently the blueprint for this particular line of bullshit that they've just started feeding us. And this came out in 2014. The Hebraic tradition, as described in the Bible, figured prominently in the culture perspective of many Americans. What they're leaving out here is the fact that there was no modern Israel. And the Hebraic tradition, I mean, Jews lived in other people's countries. That was how it was until 1948. So
Actually, that's still how it is.
but the way in which they just try to like stake claims to everything, they're trying to shoehorn themselves into this founding, basically the founding of this country by saying, oh, well, the Puritans based their whole thing on the Hebrew Bible. They based it on the Christian Bible, which happened to overlap with the Hebrew Bible. And also the whole Hebrew Bible thing, I mean, the founding fathers were Freemasons, and
At a certain level, isn't Freemasonry just Kabbalah for goys?
like maybe you shouldn't be reaching for that particular one. I don't know. It might come back to bite you in the end, but you're seeing these three claims repeated everywhere that talks about this. So like all the Jews in so and so city fought for the revolution. The first one to be killed in Georgia was this Francis Salvador guy, and the revolution depended on Jewish financing. And then it always goes back to this one guy, Haim Solomon, who supposedly lent $200,000 to Congress to do its revolutionary thing. And he was never paid back and he died bankrupt. So reparations, motherfucker. Seriously, there's going to be someone asking for reparations for that dude's family. How much you want to bet? I mean, yeah, they've always been erasing history in order to shoehorn themselves into reality, whether it was in Israel or whether now it's in the United States. It's just kind of, again, ignominious when you know that Israel actually took inspiration from the European settlers' treatment of the Native Americans when they decided to colonize Palestine. That's not really a good thing. I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, Jabotinsky, one of the early Zionist leaders, recognized the correspondence between Native Americans and Palestinians, though in a thoroughly racist way. What else? It's fucking Zionists, man. That's what they do. While professing a desire to live peacefully with the Arabs in Palestine, although insisting on a Jewish majority state, Jabotinsky, contradictorily enough, sees no way to bring about this peaceful cohabitation except through war. Yes, war is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. We have always been at war with Iran. This, he argues, entails constructing an iron wall against Arab resistance because every indigenous people will resist alien settlers as long as they see any hope of ridding themselves of the danger of foreign settlement. How dare they have survival instincts? That is what the Arabs in Palestine are doing. That's what they will resist in doing as long as there remains a solitary spark of hope that they will be able to prevent the transformation of Palestine into the land of Israel. Pretty much lays it all out there, right? People possessed of a very high ethical standard. Really? Yeah, that's the thing. The most moral army in the world. They can't just like commit the atrocities. They have to commit the atrocities and then lie about it and then insist that you believe the lie and like threaten you if you don't. It's like, dude, you're not colonizing my mind. I'm sorry. But they need the mental real estate. Their God promised them your mind 3,000 years ago. So don't be holding out. Don't be stingy. It's not just, oh, the founding fathers loved Jews and Jews were an integral part of the American Revolution. It's they were Zionists. Okay, well, wait. Zionism didn't exist when the American Revolution happened. What's all this then? Oh, no. It was their principles. If Zionism had been around, they would have been Zionists. Seriously. They're literally putting words in the founding fathers' mouths to try to justify this bullshit. Many of the founders, an admittedly loose term that we use here, as coextensive with leaders in political life from the 1770s to the early 1800s, would have supported the formation of Israel in roughly the sense envisaged by the United Nations Resolution 181 of November 1947 for at least three reasons. They wouldn't have unless they were also sexually blackmailed. Then in that case, I mean, we don't know. And they try to justify it by citing Hamilton's energetic commitment to assisting regimes and movements around the world that instantiate political and moral values consistent with America's aims. So Hamilton was a fucking scumbag. We know this. This is why they made a musical about him because they had to, prop him up as like the guy. Yeah, of course he would have endorsed Israel's foundation on this basis alone. He was a fucking scumbag. And his endorsements would have influenced many others. That is the problem. When one person has a mind virus, the mind virus is quite contagious. It's known as an epidemic, according to the World Health Organization. To be sure, the positions highlighted here were not held by all founders, understatement of the century. Nevertheless, they were sufficiently broadly held to refute the charge that endorsing Israel's creation would have fallen outside the scope of founding era commitments. It would have fallen outside the scope, dude, I'm sorry. Trying to shoehorn all these Jewish war heroes into the American Revolution is not going to change that. It's like the most uninspired myth making I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of fucking uninspired myth making. So sure, yeah, there were a lot of Jews involved in the revolution. They were just on the other side. Like Trump, who became the face of all of Big Parasite's projects for America's sacrifice, Alexander Hamilton was the face of all of these projects to co-opt the nascent United States and make it safe for Big Parasite. So in addition to the central bank, there was a whole bunch of other structures that were not part of how the US was originally imagined. He just did an impossible amount of things for one person, and that all of them were in the wrong direction. The historian Archino outlines Alexander Hamilton's accomplishments, though with an apparent pro-Hamiltonian bias that covered the colors of his analysis. He prevailed in almost every major program he had sponsored, whether the central bank, debt assumption, funding the public debt tax system, customs service, or the Coast Guard, despite years of complaints and bitter smears. Helped to transform the world, the president, from passive administrator to active policymaker, creating the institutional scaffolding for America's future emergence as a great power. He had demonstrated the creative uses of government and helped to weld the states irreversibly into one nation. If Washington was the father of the country and Madison was the father of the Constitution, then Alexander Hamilton was surely the father of the American government. And what a father he was. I mean, what a thing to be the father of. It's like saying, oh, I'm the father of Cthulhu. Unlike other founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton emerged from profoundly humble, indeed catastrophic origins, the penniless, Caribbean, illegitimate orphan son of a woman publicly branded by court order as a public whore. Oy vey. How could such a man ascend so rapidly and attain such heights in 1700s America when origins and family background still mattered greatly? In Overcoming Adversity, The Childhood of Alexander Hamilton, Michael Gerson tries to understand how Hamilton triumphed to get overwhelming odds to rise to the pinnacle of the American elite, becoming not only a founding father, but also the father of finance. Again, what a fucking thing to be the father of. It's like, I'm the father of genocide. I created suffering. I'm the father of finance. Oh boy, like, do you want a cookie? Can we lace it with arsenic, please? How did this bastard brat, as John Adams called him, or this foreign bastard, as he was referred to by Thomas Jefferson, move from such inauspicious beginnings and a tragedy-strewn childhood to a position of such potential in just a few short years? Historians also often marvel at Hamilton's seemingly superhuman productivity, a veritable writing and action machine whose works fill 27 hefty volumes. Damn, son. Even more striking, from the outset, these writings outline highly technical, detailed plans for fundamentally transforming small government America into big government empire. As historian Joanne Freeman describes him, Hamilton was a one-man army of game-changing policies. Or rather, a one-man figurehead for an army of game-changing parasites. Freeman, Gerson, and other historians attribute these feats to his enormous talent and sheer power of will, but what if this proxy was merely a proxy, executing the bidding of powerful backers who supplied him with ready-made ideas and materials to reshape America, from a free commonwealth of independent farmers into a monopoly-driven imperious war machine? Already during Hamilton's lifetime, suspected he received considerable secret assistance throughout his life. Well, yeah, sounds like it. These suspicions grew even stronger with Alexander Hamilton's reported revelation that he attended a Jewish school during his youth. For 2 centuries, this has fueled speculation that Hamilton might have been a Jew, which AI will tell you, no, that's ridiculous. No, there's no basis for that. Everybody went to Jewish schools in the 18th century if they weren't Jews. That's just the thing that happened. What the fuck, dude? Potentially acting on behalf of Jewish bankers, established a centralized Philo-Semitic American government with the central bank. Suspicions were further fueled 100 years ago when Alexander Hamilton's grandson, Aled McLean Hamilton, identified Alexander's stepfather as a rich Danish Jew, one John Michael Levine. Well, that sounds pretty conclusive. I don't know about you, but mainstream historians, however, have largely dismissed these claims with anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Well, that's how they tell on themselves, because it's like, who's being anti-Semitic here? Like, people aren't saying that Alexander Hamilton is a Jew, therefore Jews suck. People are saying Alexander Hamilton is a Jew, and therefore we have to re-examine his motivations in doing this stuff because, I mean, dual loyalty is a thing. That's the thing. Hamilton can be portrayed as opposed as a stereotypical money-hungry Jewish banker, and because he kind of fulfills all the stereotypes. This is why they came out with a whole Hamilton musical, because a book had come out around right before that basically explained how he was a Jew. And I don't think it cast any negative aspersions on that fact. It just like explained why this was the case. So they had to come out with that musical. And the musical, of course, was a huge hit. Why, record ticket prices and whatever. I haven't actually heard any of the songs musical. For all I know, it's actually good. But the point is that it's propaganda and it's meant to sell a narrative. Yes, Jews were integral to the American Revolution, but not in the way they want you to think. That even that guy, Haim Solomon, that all of those websites are promoting, like, dude was affiliated with some pretty sketchy people, and like through the Franks family, which I don't know if it's actually like connected to Jacob Frank, but there's a Jacob Franks plural in this whole story, alleging that many Franks, Henry Ford alleging that many Franks family members aided Benedict Arnold's treason. Okay, so yeah, that's a pretty significant role in the American Revolution. Such controversies have deterred historians from studying the family in depth. Fucking cowards. So they were playing both sides. Arms dealers and war contractors for the British government. Some branches supplied the British while other branches supplied the Americans. Henry Ford's book, The International Jew, don't read it. It's not like there are plenty of free copies available on the internet. Don't do that. War profiteering has been their thing for so many years because they love, I mean, it's not just the money. They love the human sacrifice of it all. This is why Israel will never have a ceasefire, like ever. Not just in Lebanon, but like ever. I mean, they're still fucking bombing people in Gaza. They're killing people in the West Bank. They're trying to kill people everywhere. And, I mean, we are all Amalek, am I right? Their objective was to play the Jewish great game and usually maintain a balance of power among warring rulers, ensuring both sides remain dependent on Jewish financiers and contractors and thus compelled to repay loans with high interest and accept Jewish domination also during peacetime. And this is when they say that Haim Solomon never got paid back. Henry Ford argues that he secured concessions in the founding of the United States that were favorable to the Jews, or at least the faction of the Jews that he represented, and that's how he was quote unquote paid back. It's very possible. I mean, they definitely made a lot of concessions to a lot of people when they created this country. It was not the founding ideals from Thomas Paine, common sense. They were watered down a bit before the Constitution was drafted. The problem is that people are just not paying attention, and they're checked out, and they're propagandized from a very early age. I mean, the fact that people are shown Steven Spielberg movies in school and presented as history when they're too young to know the difference, that's very effective. That's why they make these movies. That's why they had him make Disclosure Day, which, seriously, I watched that movie, so you don't have to, and they're gonna pull some shit. They're gonna pull some shit probably on July 4th, or maybe later in the month when Stephen Greer has his little gathering on the mountaintop to welcome the aliens. Seriously, don't believe. This is the one case in which I'll say don't believe your lying eyes, because they can do really convincing shit with holograms, and that's what they're planning. So they have to get this alien thing imprinted into our consciousness in whatever way possible, because just looking up in the sky and seeing something crazy, I think enough people are aware of Project Blue Beam at this point that it wouldn't be swallowed by everyone, but we certainly have had a all full court press to convince people that this is what's coming. So they summoned these pastors to a secret meeting in the mountains of Tennessee, because for maximum drama, it has to be the most cinematic thing possible. This is why they're putting out that Spielberg movie, Disclosure Day, which I watched because I do this. I watch shitty movies for propaganda purposes. I actually sat there through both Independence Day and the fucking sequel to get a better idea of what they're going to try to pull. And obviously, the plots of these movies are so fucking obvious, especially Independence Day. Like, okay, so all the world gets together and unites against the aliens because the aliens are evil and they want to kill us. Oh, because they're going to steal all our resources. Kind of sounds like Big Parasite, but no, these movies are extremely philo-Semitic. In fact, the day is saved by like some Jewish dude and his dad. And he's very Jewish. It's not just like he looks Jewish. No, he uses like Yiddish words and stuff. So to trust the Jew in our midst is the propaganda purpose, and to trust the Jew in our midst and to unite under the banner of, militarism, and then we will save the world. It's embarrassing that this was a blockbuster. Anyway, so this is about for maximum cinematic value. In February, he was taken to a closed meeting in Tennessee where he saw photographs of non-human beings. They were standing in the forest, very tall, with long limbs. Some resembled humanoid squids. Cthulhu, is that you? Others were transparent and glowing, he told Daily Mail. Photos were taken by people who are currently working in the study of UFOs and reverse engineering technology. According to the pastor, they're nothing like the blurry videos released by the government. Could they be AI? Could they have selected these pastors because they know that pastors aren't going to necessarily be up to like snuff on recognizing AI images? They would be easy to fool, let's say. It's not their skill set. After the meeting, while flying back to Colorado, 6 glowing spheres appeared alongside the plane. The aircraft began shaking violently. The passengers started praying, the turbulence stopped immediately, and the spheres disappeared. This is getting back to J.D. Vance's claim that the aliens, quote unquote, are demons. The people who are going along with this don't generally require proof. That's the problem. It's like a religion, basically, and they even acknowledge that it's very similar to a religion in the amount of faith that it requires. They're just trying to piggyback on as many belief systems as possible. This is called weaponizing the egregore. They need fuel for their ritual. I mean, they know that they're not they don't have the numbers to affect like the grand sacrifice of this. They need to get our involvement, let's say, and that means securing our belief. And if they can't get our consent, they can at least get our belief in an element of the thing. So that's why Trump has been shoehorning himself into Christianity with this Jesus image of himself. That's why they're trying to increase the closeness of church and state. There are a couple of reasons, actually. Zupats is convinced these are not simply extraterrestrials. They're the technology, the fallen angels, interdimensional beings mentioned in the Bible. That's funny. I don't remember seeing anything about interdimensional beings in any Bible story I've ever read. The purpose of these close meetings is to prepare Christian leaders for major disclosure. According to him, the government will slowly condition people and then repeal a non-human being. That's probably true, but it won't be an actual non-human being. I mean, they can just come up with some weird chimera that they grew in a lab. And the problem is that people want to believe because they've enshittified the real world so thoroughly that people are desperate for any sort of escape. And obviously, the possibility of alien life is a pretty serious diversion from what people experience in their day-to-day life. Pastors who attended the clandestine Tennessee Airbnb briefing, Alan DiDio, Joseph Zupitz, Larry Ragland, Mike Signorelli, and Josh Hamstra share several interlocking bonds that distinguish them from the broader pool of U.S. pastors. These connections help explain their selection by the intelligence-linked briefers described as Christians in intelligence operations. That shouldn't raise a red flag, huh? They're all within charismatic, prophetic, and revivalist streams of evangelical Christianity. Their ministries emphasize spiritual warfare, deliverance, end-times prophecy, supernatural encounters, and biblical responses to deception. Precisely the framework that briefers sought for addressing potential UFO, UAP, non-human intelligence disclosures framed as faith challenges. And I looked these people up because obviously you can't trust Grok. No public evidence suggests political ties, e.g. Trump's circle as a primary factor for the core group. Well, actually, there's political ties here. Every single one of these people is vocally pro-Israel. And lest you claim that that's what Christianity is all about. Well, no, it's kind of not. And the fact that they would select people who are, it's a little too on the nose. Obviously, Trump's allies in the quote unquote Christian community are all pro-Israel as well. They need their spiritual warfare narrative in order to more efficiently extract these spiritual resources of the United States. Literally taking tours of Israel for their followers or with their followers. Larry Ragland is one of these guys. And it's not just the evangelical Christians either. It's the Catholics too. We've got Barry Weiss's Free Press, which isn't actually free. Speaking of podcasts, earlier this week, Vice President J.D. Vance, a convert to Catholicism, theorized that UFOs might be a demonic trick. We are joined by two people who put a lot of thought into the religious aspect of all this, Diana Pasuka and Ross Douthat. Ross Douthat, you probably know, is a New York Times columnist who tends to align himself with everything Big Parasite has ever done or said, and then stamp, I guess, a Catholic seal of approval on it or something. Diana Pasuka, this other one, she's professor of religious studies, and her new book is The Others, UFO AI and the Secret Forces Guiding Human Destiny. Basically, she's putting a Catholic stamp of approval on the whole UFO narrative, just like he is. But I had a hunch about her, so I looked it up on Wikipedia, and sure enough, Basuka is a practicing Roman Catholic, yet grew up in a secular family in California with a Jewish mother and Irish Roman Catholic father. Okay. Tell us the whole story. I mean, every single fucking time. Anyway, so they're setting the stage for this alien thing, and they're even there was a F-15 pilot who was shot down over Iran who described the drone swarm as that he encountered that shot him down as like a jellyfish with like a big drone and then spitting out a bunch of little drones, which we know they have, which we know Iran has. I don't know if they developed technology themselves or bought it from someone else, but their own their native drone technology is pretty advanced. And for some reason, we're only just learning now about his experience, and it's very particular the words they chose to describe it. Pilot said he initially struggled to identify the object approaching his aircraft. This is like 3 days ago. Yet this was when he was shot down in April. And yet we're hearing about this now. So why is that? Multiple drones interconnected and moving as one with smaller drones beneath the bigger drones like legs. One of the sources familiar with the pilot's witness account. So this is not the actual pilot saying this. Real alien shit, he told CNN. Now, why did he use the word alien? The pilot didn't call it alien. The pilot didn't suggest it was UFO or anything like that. He just said it was really weird and like nothing he'd ever seen before, but he knew that it was a drone, or a bunch of drones rather. So why, and this other guy calls it a minefield of drones. So why did this one intelligence source call it real alien shit? Well, because they wanted to plant that seed in your brain.
Given the runaway success of its 9/11 operation, which catapulted the US into a quarter century of completely unnecessary and ruinous wars, Israel would be almost foolish not to be considering a similar operation targeting Iran, especially given the complete lack of popular support in the United States currently. An alliance with ET would make Iran public enemy number one and then some. Should it emerge that Iran was colluding with extraterrestrials, who might also be demons, to target American soldiers and bases, well, surely the entire country would rise up as one and give Israel everything it wants.
People are also much more inclined to swallow bullshit when it's packaged in a religious wrapping. That's why I warned you in the first video in the series to avoid these religious tinged revolutionary movements, because chances are it's an intelligence op. And sure enough, this UFC plot, which may not be entirely over, was deliberately missed, basically. Okay, so this 19-year-old kid who supposedly led this plot had recently begun interacting with a group online that was comprised of individuals claiming to be ex-military and Christian-based. She didn't know the name of the group, but they expressed ultra-religious and anti-government sentiments. Okay, well, ultra-religious, meaning what? They're trying to frame as Christian extremism the idea that our rights are inalienable, God-given rights, not government-permitted, controlled, or regulated, and not to be infringed upon. That's literally in the Declaration of Independence. So, I mean, I understand a lot of people don't believe it, but like it's literally in our founding documents, so I don't see how this is presented as Christian extremism. Oh, Bet's right about Proper making sympathetic comments about Adolf Hitler and posting anti-Semitic comments on Facebook. Oh, that's what they mean by, quote, Christian extremists. What? I mean, the whole plot just like has false flag bingo vibes. I actually started making a false flag bingo board that had just like all the common tropes that you expect with these terrorist attacks that are busted and then publicized and then trotted out all over the media whenever they need to enact some new constitution destroying regulations. But they used to do this a lot right after 9/11. They would get like some mentally slow Muslim kid and recruit him online, and then claim they were going to do a big thing and push him towards violence. Like they would just start talking about religion or whatever, and then they would push him towards violence and say, okay, we're going to give you some guns. Okay, we're going to give you some money. And then they would arrest him and like haul him up in front of the country and say, look at these Muslims, they're so bad. And they did that a lot. It was like 95% of cases at one point were like basically entrapment. And they're still doing it, but they're doing it less so. And the fact that not all of these, there were 23 of them, I think, supposedly. The fact that these guys were not all arrested when they always arrest them, it doesn't matter if you haven't done anything, they will fucking arrest your ass and make an example of you. The fact that they've only arrested
7?
of them suggests that they're waiting, because if you read the affidavit, it talks about they're still planning on the big one was going to be July 4th or July 3rd. There's two FIFA soccer games, Kansas City, that they are planning to attack. So the fact that there's still like what 18 of them running around, then I mean, it seems like pretty obvious what's going to happen here. And I think that they're the backup squad for if the UFO thing doesn't work, or if there's some sort of problem with that. If they have a problem getting people to attend as the World's Fair, which would suggest that they do, because Trump is having a rally on July 4th on the National Mall, and it'll probably be very sparsely attended. Oh shit, he sold gold coins too with his face on them. Yeah, I forgot about that. Sold gold coins, and he's also signing the dollar. I mean, he's literally like carpet bombing the country with his face. Nobody wants to see that shit, but they know that it's a great way to focus popular anger because people are definitely pissed off and people are starting to get ready to do something maybe, although the jewel wasp sting has basically made it impossible. So it's anybody's guess whether anything will actually happen, but
Is there no escape from Donald Trump? He's not just all over the news. Here in Washington, his face is in your face all over the place. He's on these massive banners outside some government buildings. Americans will soon be able to spend dollar bills that will have his distinctive signature scrawled all over them. His face is going to be on gold coins. He's even going to have his portrait in new passports that are issued this year. He has slapped his name on some of the best-known buildings in D.C., like the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace and what's now called the Trump Kennedy Center. He's always been heavily into his own branding, even when he was a property developer, not a politician. Supporters see this as a sign of how he is making America great again. But critics claim the presence of Donald Trump all over Washington is reminiscent of something authoritarian leaders like to do in other countries, using their image as a symbol of their power and control. It's not just his name and his face across the city. He's also rebuilding parts of Washington to match his architectural aesthetic and vision. Trump is spending millions resurfacing the famous reflecting pool. He's going to paint it bright blue. The crane that is towering above the White House is for the building of Trump's beloved new ballroom. He bulldozed the whole of the East Wing to make way for this massive structure. Many of his opponents see the gaping hole as a metaphor for what they think he's doing to America.
well,
And
yeah.
there are his plans for a new triumphal arch based on the Arc de Triomphe in Paris and nicknamed inevitably the Arc de Trump. Love him or hate him, and plenty of people do both. Here in Washington, you just can't seem to get away from Donald Trump.
People are pissed off, and they definitely want him to be the shield for them. Actually, let's take a look at the website now. I was literally laughing looking at this, and I shouldn't be because like it's my country that's getting shitified, but like, dude, Great American State Fair will showcase the very best of America through state pavilions, industry displays, family-friendly attractions, movie screenings, musical performances, military ensembles, spectacular flyovers. I bet an F-35 falls out of the sky and crushes a child. Daily cultural programming, food and beverages, and an iconic Ferris wheel in the National Mall, which, like America, doesn't work. Daily programming themes, oh boy. The American canon, land and prosperity. So that's probably why there was no food there that day. This was the land and prosperity day. Oh no, they didn't. Opening day was called the American Cannon. You got a guy jerking off. Okay, I mean, yeah, cannon with two ends versus one end, but I'm sorry, you can't see the metaphorical. Holy shit. I mean, these people operate via symbols, and that's a pretty like potent symbol right there. That's so fucked up. I can't even. Oh my God. Future of America, innovation, technology, and progress. That's going to be when they geofence everyone and sell them their own data back to them or something. Woo, July 1st is going to be faith, values, and inspiration. Don't want to miss that one. I bet that'll be all Judeo-Christian slop. Horsepower of America. Then they're going to have like a thing that makes all the electric vehicles converge on there and start running people over. They've already said gasoline is going to run out around that same time. I don't think that that's an accident. Wings of Freedom. Oh my God, that's the day. Friday, July 3rd. Wings of Freedom. A plane will fall out of the sky. How much you want to bet? And of course, Independence Day celebration. That's where the magic happens, literally. Um, we don't really have to worry about the other ones because the rest of the event will probably be canceled if things go according to plan on July 4th, of course. Free signature events will bring the American story to life to unforgettable experiences. This is the beginning of the golden age of America, Trump declared at the fair kickoff on Wednesday evening. Golden shower age of America, maybe. The July 4th thing is screaming false flag, the first interplanetary false flag. Every generation gets one moment that they remember for the rest of their lives. In 2026, generations of Americans will look up at the sky and remember the incredible sights of the 250th anniversary. From the first flyby of the moon since 1972 to July 4th, 2026, yet another moment will arrive. Yet another moment. What will that moment be? Oh, the largest fireworks display in history. Okay, well, I mean, I love fireworks as much as the next person, but I don't really see how a large fireworks display is a moment that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Generally, you forget it as soon as you go home. 855,000 fireworks shells launched from 10 sites. This is like perfect cover for these motherfuckers to stage some kind of false flag shit. Salute to America event will be historic. Attendees should assess their health before deciding to go, as air quality will decline and noise levels will be higher than usual. Okay. I mean, I get they're gonna blow a lot of shit up, but like, are they blowing up a lot of shit besides fireworks? Because I think that's what it sounds like. And the question is, who's blowing up that shit? What is the purpose of blowing up that shit? Yeah, this is going to be a big thing. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be where they do the UFO. Maybe they'll just do that in New York, but I think we're going to be having multiple events on July 4th, and the ultimate aim is to get between us and what is left of our patriotic feeling, our religious feeling, our social bonds, and of course our physical assets. I mean, getting back to those booths at the state fair, SpaceX, I mean, by now you've probably heard about the asset stripping operation that's going on there, that it's your pension fund will be required to invest in it, not on July 4th, but 2 days after July 4th. It's July 6th is the date that that SpaceX enters the index funds. And we know SpaceX value is tanking, that it was overinflated to begin with. I mean, $1 trillion. It's like it's like asking a child to invent a valuation for like what's the most valuable company ever. And Elon Musk is essentially a child. I mean, he's a child in an adult's body, and it's unfortunate that this is the enshittification. This is they don't give us like inspiring millionaires or billionaires anymore. They give us like depressing and ignominious billionaires, and he is definitely that. I mean, talk about everything you touch turns to shit. But it's the SpaceX is already analysts are pointing that yeah, it looks like this was a scam. Yeah, this is definitely a scam. Yeah, they changed all the rules in order to scam, but no one's actually doing anything about it. Like the pension funds, BlackRock is not deciding that it's not going to invest in SpaceX. These indexes are not saying, well, yeah, we said we'd let you list, and we changed the rules so he doesn't have to be rated a certain bond level. SpaceX was basically triple Z minus. That's not stopping anybody from putting it on the indexes. And so your pension fund, even though everybody knows SpaceX is a shitty investment and that it's going to result in a mass transfer of wealth from the average person who normally wouldn't be investing in an IPO to Elon Musk and his buddies, it's still going to happen. And that this kind of slow motion car crash that we've been dealing with across basically every aspect of American society, especially for the last couple of years, but I mean, really for the last decade, if not the entire 21st century, is part of the whole plan, because it's not just like humiliation rituals, but in general, your frustration, your fear, your rage, your sense of impotence at being able to change anything, that is all food for Big Parasite. Is there any way to avoid this? I mean, I would say withdrawing your belief from withdrawing your consent from their systems, withdrawing your belief from their systems. I mean, they've tried to basically hijack every egregore they can get their hands on, whether it's belief in UFOs, whether it's belief in aliens, whether it's belief in this or that religion. That's why Peter Thiel is running around presenting himself as the Antichrist, and then saying it's Greta Thunberg when he's asked. It's like, dude, we know you like to be the bad guy. Come on. And then this is why Trump is going around presenting himself as Jesus. It's just they're grabbing everything that they can get. This is full on psychological slash spiritual asset stripping operation. And meanwhile, every country with brain is offloading U.S. treasuries. Nobody's gonna have this anymore. They're gonna cover it up for as long as they can, but literally, we're gonna be running around the world, fucking holding guns to people's heads, saying, "Buy our treasuries, or we're gonna fucking shoot you." And they're gonna be like, "You used up all your bullets in Iran," and then we're gonna be like, "Fuck, don't tell anybody." This is it. This is the end of the empire, and we're framing it as the end of the world. We're trying to get all eschatological on people's asses because we don't want to admit that we are not actually the center of the universe. But yeah, this is it kind of sucks to be American right now. And so like they know they can't continue this. There is no way to fix this problem. The dollar has not been based on anything for a very long time. We went off the gold standard in the 70s, and the petrodollar, which has replaced it, is in tatters because of this war that we started in Iran. And again, Trump didn't blunder into this. He didn't get like roped into this by bad advisors and whatever. This was a planned, controlled demolition of the United States. The fact that it's happening on the 250th anniversary has ritual significance. Again, this is all like this. They're trying to use this entire like humiliation ritual. It's a ritual on multiple levels. Like this is a human sacrifice, a geopolitical human sacrifice, in order to make themselves gods. And yeah, they're feeding off the collective belief of millions of people, which is why they had their military commanders in the Middle East when this war started, all shouting at their people about we need to kill as many people as possible because we need to bring about Armageddon. And people like Hegseth have been spouting off about the Crusades for a long time, and they're trying to basically harness morphic resonance of like shared human collective unconscious memories, history, just patterns. They create a resonance so that it amplifies what they're trying to do here. And because we're literally in uncharted territory, because never before has a sovereign nation, especially a sovereign nation with superpower status, for better or worse, ceded its authority on military intelligence, um, and matters of personnel, basically, to another sovereign nation, a much smaller one, a much less populated one, supposedly a less powerful one, but we know what's really going on there. Especially on its 250th anniversary of independence, it's like, oh yes, independence is great. America, fuck yeah. Actually, I thought better about it. I want to be a colony again. Hi, Israel. Can I have my colonial status back? Good goyim. If the COVID atrocity and Gaza got your attention and you realize, something has to be done here because this world is not big enough for the both of us. This world is not big enough for the both of us. And parasites will not rest until they have completely shredded reality and rebuilt it in their own image. And you, in that image, are a slave species. You will love your servitude. You will cling to your servitude for dear life, and you will resent anyone who tries to drag you out of it. Already seeing this with the hippocampally hijacked masses who resent anybody who tries to get between them and their next booster. This process can be stopped, but it's on us to do it. And we don't have a lot of time. I don't want to throw anyone into panic, but like we're literally running out of gas here. Yeah, we have a few advantages. We have creativity and imagination are definitely on our side. Humor is on our side. The ability to tell stories. I think that parasites are really not that great storytellers, which is why they have to use AI and use all this other shit in order to create their propaganda, and they're still not doing a very good job of it. And of course, we also have numbers. There's a lot more of us than there are of them, and there are more of us every day. People are waking up to the blood funnel jammed down their neck. We should be looking to build coalitions wherever we can find them, just because you disagree about one particular issue. it's probably not a deal breaker unless that issue is whether or not a elite group of sociopathic parasites should control the world. That's a deal killer right there. But there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of us that are fed up with this shit. There's a lot of us that are isolated and don't realize what a common view this is. So reach out, find people who are looking for others that share their convictions, and let's use those convictions because this is reaching a point of no return. And if you want to save your own ass, we got to get to work.
Due to the content of this video, YouTube is shadow banning the shit out of me, and it sucks because I put a lot of work into this. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody who you think will enjoy it, or more than one person. In fact, share it with as many people as possible. Carpet bomb that motherfucker. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.